Welcome to episode 419 of the Thunder Underground podcast. Trent here as always. And boy, this week's a great one. Nige Rockett of the band Onslaught is here to talk about Onslaught's brand new album, double album, that comes out in May, as well as a lot of talk about the early days of Onslaught, where they're looking to go into the future, and everything that's going on this year, because this year is the 40th anniversary of their debut album, Power from Hell. The new album, Origins of Aggression, features re-recordings of several of the songs from Power from Hell, as well as their other two early albums, The Force and In Search of Sanity. We're going to talk about all of that with Nige coming up, but before we do, I need to let you know who sponsors this podcast. Sunset Tattoo is a tattoo shop located in Midtown Tulsa. They're state licensed, they're Native American owned, they have a female artist on staff, full-time, they've got 30 years of experience. Jake and his crew over there been doing this a long time. Hit up Sunset Tattoo to schedule an appointment. You can call, you can text, you can walk in. If you've got an idea ready to go, that's pretty simple. If you have an idea in your head but you don't know how to bring it together, Sunset Tattoo can help you out with that. Hit up their socials. Facebook and Instagram are both Sunset Tattoo Tulsa. Follow them on both those. I personally have had work done by Jake more than once. I'm very happy with it. I know many other people that have had work done at Sunset Tattoo and are happy about it. And I'm sure that many of your favorite bands probably have a band member that's had work done by Sunset Tattoo, because Jake has tattooed a lot of touring musicians throughout the past couple of decades. So hit up Sunset Tattoo and tell them you heard about him on Thunder Underground. DEB Concerts. As a concert promoter based in the Tulsa area, they brought tons of great acts to the downtown Tulsa area at the club level and the arena level, and they book the DEB concert stage at Rocklahoma every year. The DEB concert stage is also the stage where the pre-party happens, so if you hold a 3-day ticket, you can hit up that 4th day, that pre-party on Thursday night. This year at Rocklahoma, DEB Concerts has brought in Dee Snider to headline the pre-party, of course, of Twisted Sister fame. He's been on this podcast before, so check that out. Trickster will also be on the pre-party. 2 members of Trickster, including PJ Farley, who is in Fozzy now, have been on this podcast. That day will also feature another legend of the 80s, which has not been announced yet, but that announcement should be coming here within a couple weeks. You can figure it out if you look at the little blurred out name, but the rest of the days on the DEB concert stage will feature headline sets on that stage from Mike Tramp, formerly of White Lion. He's been on this podcast before. Orianthi. Alice Cooper's former guitarist, has tons of great solo work out there. Really excited to see her live. Van Halen, a great Van Halen tribute. Dime Store Riot, a great Tulsa area band who's been on this podcast several times. Another great band that's been on this podcast several times is Fist of Rage. They'll also be on the DEB concert stage. One Night Stand and many other great bands. Hit up rocklahoma.com to see the entire lineup. The other stages, of course, feature acts like Shinedown, Bruce Dickinson of Iron Maiden, Alice Cooper, Marilyn Manson, Breaking Benjamin. The list is great and long, so check that out. Hit up DEB Concerts on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all at DEB Concerts. Give them a follow and tell them you heard about them right here on Thunder Underground. And speaking of Rocklahoma, our other sponsor is Rocklahoma Bitches. They've been an institution at Rocklahoma since 2011. Here we are, 2025, going strong. Christy and Kendra, if you've been out there, you know these two ladies. They're always around the campgrounds, they're always around the VIP areas, and they're always around that DEB concert stage that I just talked about. They're very charitable people. They're always giving it to nonprofit organizations. They sponsor the Cancer Sucks benefit that's in Tulsa at the Cain's Ballroom every year towards the end of the year in November or December. And they also donate to other nonprofit organizations. Christy is always bidding on the guitars that Rocklahoma puts up for auction every year that are autographed, and the profits go towards charity. Christy generally always wins one of those every year. And of course, Rocklahoma Bitches have tons and tons of Rocklahoma Bitches swag. And the best part of it is they'll give it all to you for free. Well, not all of it. They'll give you something for free. Try not to be stingy and try not to be demanding. But if you see them out there, usually one of these two ladies, have some Rocklahoma bitches swag on them at some point or another. So hit up Rocklahoma Bitches, and if for some reason you hadn't heard of them and you're out there, tell them you heard about them right here on Thunder Underground. All right, let's just jump into this now. Nige Rockett, the guitarist and founding member of Onslaught, is here on the podcast to talk about Origins of Aggression. Origins of Aggression is a double album that comes out on May 23rd. This double album from Onslaught features, the first album features all new recordings of their songs from their first three albums, their classic era albums from the 80s before their eventual split up. Power from Hell, The Force, and In Search of Sanity. The second album is fully cover songs, featured cover songs as they talk about in their press release, and of course as Nige talks about coming up, these are all songs that directly had an influence on him and Onslaught in the beginning that helped develop their sound and helped develop them as musicians and players. The majority of these covers are punk and hardcore based. There's a few metal songs from, Motorhead. Of course, Lemmy has always famously claimed that Motorhead was a rock and roll band, not a metal band. But regardless, Iron Fist is actually out now. If you're hearing this previous to May 23rd, obviously. If you're hearing this post May 23rd, obviously the whole thing is out there. So be sure to check that out. Maybe other singles will come out. I wouldn't be surprised. This was the first single Iron Fist came out in late March. So I would guess that there would be another single or two before we get to May 23rd. Probably one of the re-records. Maybe a Discharge track. I don't know. We talked about Discharge coming up in the interview because they recorded 3 Discharge tracks on the covers part of this album. There's 12 tracks. I'll run through it real quick. We've got, like I said, the Motorhead Iron Fist song kicks off that part of the album. We've also got covers from Dead Kennedys. Like I said, 3 from Discharge, The Exploited, Judas Priest, Killing Joke, GBH, The Sex Pistols, UK Subs, and Black Sabbath. We've got a wide, mix and range of music there, styles, types, and of course song types. We talk about that as well in the interview. Holidays in the Sun by the Sex Pistols is obviously a lot different than something like Free Will Burning or War Pigs. And they cover all these with ease and in their own style too, which I think is great. They lean towards, in like the Sex Pistols or the punk side, they lean towards the punk sounds, but they still keep it very much Onslaught. And of course with Dave Garnett's vocals on this, it sounds like Onslaught and Nige's guitar work and everything. If you're a person that isn't familiar with the fact that Onslaught has newer music, they actually have more output in the modern era than they did in that original era. Like I said, previous they had those 3 albums in that classic 80s era that came out. Power from Hell in 85, like I said, came out right in the heart of the beginning of thrash music. These guys were from the UK when the majority of thrash metal that was blowing up was coming out of America. And then you had Germany and Destruction, but Destruction didn't come out till the same year as this as well. So we're talking the same exact time. Megadeth's debut album didn't even come out till the following year. Anthrax was the year before. Metallica and Slayer, of course, 2 years before in 83. So this is all like whenever thrash is developing. Onslaught is a big part of the development of this. And a lot of people look to this band as influential. And then, of course, later on, people look to him as an underground classic, kind of a discovery if they missed him the first time around. And since 2007, the band has released 5 albums. It'll be 5 with Origins of Aggression when that comes out. Or 6 technically, count that as 2, but 4 studio albums. The most recent one, Generation Antichrist, came out in 2020. All these albums are great. These guys are ferocious, intense. If you just like balls out thrash metal, these guys have elements of all the bands you love, plus other bands as well. We just talked about some of the covers they cover. The area that they, reside in was never just direct thrash. It always had these hardcore, early punk and hardcore elements to them as well. They maintain that to this day, and they just gotten heavier throughout the years. So glad to see that Nige is back on the heading on the upswing after dealing with his health issues. He's going to talk about that here in a second as well. So let me quit rambling about all these things and let's just jump into this. Here is Nige Rockett of Onslaught.
It was kind of weird. 3 years away is quite a long time, and I wasn't nervous in any way. I was just kind of apprehensive. It's like you feel all you've lost all your stage moves and what you used to do. Just nothing comes back at all immediately. I was like, so weird. What do I do? It's like so it was kind of strange. And the very first show, because we were the first band to play on the cruise.
Okay.
There was lots of technical issues, and one of the lights above me, or the lights above me, weren't working. So I was in constant darkness, which really didn't help either. So it wasn't the best experience for me coming back. So I'm just looking forward to the next show now to get another one under my belt and try and get some kind of normality back on stage.
Well, you guys have a lot of, dates announced and touring coming up, festivals and your own tours throughout this year. Are you 100% ready to go, or are you a little apprehensive at
Um,
all?
No, I'm still a little way off, because at the time I was out and the nature of my illness, I lost a lot of natural strength. I completely lost the use of my arms for maybe 6 to 9 months. So I need to get on my muscle back, get up to speed with the material. I mean, it's coming. I'm rehearsing a lot every day on my own, and things are coming back slowly. So I think I think once we hit a good run of shows, because that always gets your fitness going again, I think I'll be okay.
That live show thing's not coming back super naturally to you, but like when you were getting back into playing after not being able to use your hands for that much time, was it natural to get that speed back or?
No, not
No.
at all. I mean, I'm
Okay.
still struggling now. I'm up to around, I reckon, about 185 BPM, something like that, 190. I need to be up to like 200, 210 to play the most of the onslaught stuff. So
Right.
it's just a case of getting all that muscle memory back again. It's kind of okay on the Power from Hell stuff, which is not kind of as complex as, say, the material on Six or Generation Antichrist. So when we start to drop that stuff in, I've got to be really sort of up on my game back for that.
Right.
But it's coming slowly. I'm putting the time in, and it's definitely getting there.
Good to hear. Well, this year,
Thanks.
2025 is a pretty big year in the world of Onslaught. You've got this double album coming out in May, and then you've got the 40th anniversary of Power from Hell. So you
Yeah,
guys kind of looking forward to seeing what this year brings you?
yeah. I mean, um, it's going to be mega. I mean, we're doing lots of things we've never done before. Going to Australia, for example, which is big on our bucket list. So yeah, it's definitely going to be. I mean, we've got new booking agents as well, so there's loads of new stuff coming in all the time. So we're going to be real flat out this year, which is great for me because, as I said, I think it's the only way to get your fitness truly back. I mean, you can do all the work at home in the gym or physiotherapy, etc., but you cannot kind of get what playing a live show brings. So I'm sure I'll get there.
Origins of Aggression features basically a double album of, re-recording your music and cover songs. Talk a bit about the idea of releasing this as a full big package.
Well, I mean, the initially the idea was to re-record Power from Hell,
Okay.
as a lot of bands do with certain albums from the past. But we had a few discussions with some people who are kind of very high up in the music industry, especially in the field of metal. And one guy in particular, he said, well, it was his favorite Onslaught album and what got him into Onslaught and into kind of this thrash metal. And he said, I wouldn't want to hear it re-recorded. He said, it means so much to me, how it is. is very special. And he said, I don't think I'd like it. So it kind of rang a few bells, and I thought, well, a lot of people are going to be like that because it is a very important album to a lot of people. You know, it was kind of groundbreaking at the time. So we thought, let's think outside the box a little bit. We'll re-record a few of the tracks because obviously we got I mean, Dave's not a new vocalist anymore, but a lot of people haven't heard him really sing that stuff unless they've seen us live. So there's a big reach for that. So we came up with the idea. Let's do for the 40th anniversary of Power from Hell. Let's do a story basically of Onslaught from the beginning to celebrate this album. So we decided to do a selection of tracks from like 1982, including maybe the first two songs we ever wrote, up to 1989 with the In Search of Sanity album, and then to take things that little bit further, which I think is really kind of going to be interesting to the fans to see where Onslaught came from back in the early days.
Yeah.
There's a lot of the within the artwork for the album. I've written a little story about each of the cover tracks that we've done and why, in particular, that we've done that track. They're not just random songs that we've just picked up to cover. You know, they actually mean something to me and mean something to the band. So yeah, I mean, we just went through that and we got some great covers on there. And very happy with how it sounds. And it just paints a picture for the fans rather than just listening to Power from Hell, what they've heard 1,000 times, you know. So just a little bit more interesting, I think.
Well, you mentioned, Dave's voice singing these older songs. Like, what do you think he brings to it, that sets him apart from the original, sound of
Uh,
these?
I mean, when last rehearsal, we rehearsed last week, going through the Power from Hell stuff. I can see with every rehearsal, he's kind of growing with those songs. And he's just bringing a whole new level of aggression to Power from Hell. I mean, he sounds absolutely amazing in my eyes. Obviously, he's a little bit different to what Mo was. Mo was very kind of unique in what he did on Power from Hell, but I think this kind of marries the onslaught from 1985 to 2025, and it just gives it a whole new level, basically, of aggression. I think, but he
Yeah.
does sound great singing it, and as I say, he's finding his feet every time we play those songs, and he's truly ripping it now.
Yeah, he brings a great intensity to it, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Thank you.
So, like, how long was the process of re-recording the old songs? Was there a lot of like extra rearranging any parts, or was it just like a straight up like let's go in and knock this out?
We've done pretty much straight for straight on the onslaught songs,
Yeah.
um, and and with the covers as I've also written in the sleeve. I feel they're absolute classics, and to me, you cannot mess with a classic. So we've done it as true to the originals as we could, but in onslaught style, you know. Um, and I mean, some tracks have blown me away. I mean, they're obviously some of my favorite tracks from when I was a kid, and to hear some of them with us playing it, it's just real nice, you know, just to bring it's a slightly different vibe to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt it would be kind of sacrilegious to change anything in those songs, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. Well, like, kind of playing off, what we just talked about with Dave's voice on the newer stuff. You're basically re-recording these old songs with a totally different lineup, but do you have someone like Jeff's that's been in the band, for nearly 20 years?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
do you kind of look at this as having guys help you bring your music, to a new era, or is it more like these guys, like Jeff and everybody, this music's just as much a part of them now, so it's kind of like this is Onslaught.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I mean,
Okay.
they're very crucial to the band. As you say, Jeff's been in the band like 20, almost 20 years, so he's the longest serving member after myself. But the other guys, they've all been in the band now 6, 7 years.
Yeah.
They've all learning their trade and stuff, and they bring in a whole new feel to the band, I think. And this will be the first time actually we released two albums back to back with the same lineup, which is nice.
First
So
time
long,
ever? Or
yeah, first time
oh,
ever. Long may that continue because they are really some really talented guys, you know. And they're not just helping me achieve dreams; they're achieving their own dreams, you know.
yeah.
We're one big happy unit, you know.
Are you a reflective guy at all? Have you like sat back and thought, what the version of you 40 years ago would think about the fact that 40 years later you're recording these songs once again?
No, I mean, it blows me away to still think I'm still doing this after all
Yeah.
that time, you know. But no, I'm not a person to look backwards, you know. I tend to look forwards all the time. I'm looking at the next album now. I mean, obviously, this is a kind of nod back with what we're doing with the origins of aggression. But now I'm always a guy who looks kind of forward and to the next stage of what we're going to do to take this band to the next level.
You talked about, the covers and like what that music meant to you. You've got a few metal songs, but the majority of the songs on here are punk, hardcore. Talk a
Yeah,
little bit about like what those genres, like punk specifically, meant to you in your development as a player early on.
yeah. I mean, I'm just it's the music I grew up on pretty much. Obviously, you say there's a few metal covers in there which obviously kind of infiltrated my love for punk music. You know, just because they're amazing tracks and stuff. But I mean, ever since I was early teens, I remember I bought the Sex Pistols album the first day it was out. I was kind of like 13, I think, and I was hooked ever since then. And we used to go all around the UK watching bands play, sleep rough, try and do this and do that just to get into the gigs for nothing because we had no money. We got friendly with guys in some bands, and they would always put us on the guest list because they would see that we're traveling around. And I just loved music, you know, live music, and this what made me want to be in a band. And that's what we did. We said, look, we're following these bands all over the country. We love it so much. Let's do it ourselves, which we decided to do. There was one major kind of setback that we couldn't play. We had no instruments and we couldn't play. So the next mission was to buy some cheap guitars and learn to play some basic chords in it, which we did. Luckily,
Yeah.
there's a guy from I'm sure you've heard of him, a band called Vice Squad,
Yeah.
British punk band back in the late 70s, 80s. And Dave, the guitarist, lived literally half a mile down the road from me. And I watched Vice Squad play one night, and I got speaking to him after. He said, "Oh, just pop down. We'll have a coffee, and I'll show you some stuff." And that was it. I went done that about 4 or 5 times, and that was it. Set me on my way to playing guitar, and I've never looked back since. But tracks like that, obviously, I was learning all these songs. Once I knew the basics of a guitar, I would start to learn my favorite tracks, which a lot are on the cover side of Origins. And then as it kind of stepped up, I was getting into Motorhead and Judas Priest and Sabbath and stuff. And I think the Priest track was where I really started to push myself playing guitar, and I actually learned all that solo note for note over a period of months because it was kind
Wow.
of tricky. But it really introduced me to playing lead guitar. I did the same with Motorhead, No Sleep Till Hammersmith. I learned the whole album, solos, everything, and it was just on repeat. And it helped me massively as a musician. You know?
Well, I mean, kind of playing on that, could you pinpoint one of these songs that you guys recorded on Origins of Aggression as like being the most important to you? Or is that too hard of a narrow down?
Well, I mean, Holidays in the Sun, for example, is the very first ever punk track I ever heard.
Okay.
It was the opening track of the album, Never Mind the Bollocks. So that had a massive impression on me. Never heard anything like it. Obviously, I was into bands like T Rex and Sweet
Hmm.
as like an 11, 12-year old, you know. And then all of a sudden, this music came along. It was like off the scale, totally aggressive, totally like unfriendly, and it was amazing. So that had a huge impact on me. And then kind of the Discharge stuff came along then, and Motorhead, and the influence of those two bands on myself, um, as a fan and a musician, was huge. So tracks like Iron Fist, Ace of Spades, and the Discharge tracks, what we've included on the album, were massively influential in pushing Onslaught in the direction we went.
You would think just based off of, deducing that Discharge had to be pretty important since you put three tracks on there.
Oh yeah, yeah, hugely important. But what surprised me is when because we only play a couple of tracks usually in our set from Power from Hell. Especially some of the deeper songs on the album we've never not even played since the sort of mid '80s, really. So when I went back to learn these tracks, I'm thinking, wow, this is I can really hear like Motorhead in there a lot with the key changes and things like that, and it really surprised me how much kind of subliminal influence there was on Power from Hell from Motorhead. It surprised me a lot, but which I found kind of cool actually. It was nice.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got to be interesting to be able to, listen back to something you did 40 years ago and, just
Yeah,
hear it in a different way than you did back
yeah.
then.
I mean, it really surprised me learning some of the songs. I thought, wow, where did this come from? And I thought, wow, I can hear that in a Motorhead song, that key change or whatever, and it's like, wow.
Yeah. I know that we're talking new releases and you mentioned new music a little while ago and you guys signed this record deal that, made it sound like it's a long-term thing. So
Yeah,
like
yeah,
what's the status and like are you guys working currently on new music?
yeah. I mean, the new a new studio album's underway now.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
Not recording, just we're in the writing stages of. So I find it. I'm a kind of guy. I find it very difficult to multitask, if you like.
Yeah.
So I need to get one album out of the way before I can truly sort of involve myself in the next one. So now this once this album comes out, I can set everything into writing the new album then. So, but lots of stuff. I mean, we've got piles of riffs. I've got all the song titles, the album title in the bag. Everything's ready to go. We got all the themes for the album, what it's going to be about. So hopefully it's going to be a fast process trying to get all this put together in between the lots of touring that we're going to do. But yeah, lots of forward planning. Um, Great signing to a new label, which is really exciting. These guys. I mean, we've been with them for a few months, but we haven't been able to announce things. We want to get everything in place and make this big announcement package. And they've been amazing so far with the early days of the promo, what's going on and everything. And it's another level. So we're really excited about getting this record out and seeing what they can do, and taking us hopefully to the next level for Onslaught.
Yeah.
The two guys that run the label are big Onslaught fans, so that's a big plus for us. It's really important. I mean, I've worked with Niels um, for many years at AFM, so he's from AFM and he's now working at Rain in Phoenix Music, and we get on so cool, and he's a great guy, and he's totally behind the band. So we're in a good place.
I know it's a totally different time and era, but you always hear bad stories about people dealing with record labels in the 80s and 90s. Did you have a good experience back then in your guys' experience? Or?
No, we had a good experience with two labels that released Power from Hell and The Force. Um, Kind of made some mistakes when we signed with Polygram, London Records, for In Search of Sanity, and basically it killed the band.
Hmm.
Um, it should have been the label that took us maybe two or three levels beyond where we were. Instead, they did okay, but they seen the band as something different to how we seen the band. They wanted immediate success. There was no kind of time for growth. They just wanted us to be the UK version of Metallica,
Right.
which we didn't want to be. And like everything got kind of diluted with In Search of Sanity, especially with Steve Grimmett coming in. It changed the whole sound of the band. And the mix on the album, it just wasn't Onslaught anymore. And caused a lot of problems everywhere, really, within the band. And I think it just became not enjoyable anymore, if that's the right way to put it. And with the emergence of grunge music and stuff like that, thrash was kind of a little bit on the wane at the time, and things didn't feel great. So it just seemed like the natural thing to do was call it a day,
Yeah.
which unfortunately we did, and it was a shame because we were all set to do pretty big things. But the label had no patience in wanting to develop us, and that was it. So the end.
Well, what was the, I mean, I grew up in the middle, middle of America. So, I saw all the thrash stuff going on here. Like, was there a scene in the UK or was it mainly you guys or like what was it
I mean,
like? Or,
there was a big fan base for thrash metal, but there
yeah.
wasn't a lot of bands, only a handful of bands ever came out of the UK which had any reasonable amount of success. It was strange because the fan bases were there, but there weren't the musicians. It seemed like every guy in America wanted to play guitar, but that wasn't how it was in England. Everybody wanted to go to gigs and watch the American bands, but they didn't want to do it for themselves,
Oh,
which I found kind of weird, you know. Um, and that's why I think that we didn't have a very big home scene of bands. Um, and well, I mean, we were lucky. We got it good until we decided to split. I mean, we had some great years, but it just didn't work for us.
you mentioned, earlier playing some of those, recording some of those Power from Hell songs that you hadn't played in year or since back
Yeah.
then. With this being the 40th anniversary, are there any thoughts of like mixing more of that stuff into the set list or any
Well,
plans on
no,
that?
we're going to be playing the whole album basically.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I finally relearned everything, so I'm kind of
Okay.
know. But yeah, what we're going to do for headline shows, we're going out and play the whole album of Power from Hell, and then mix up some tracks from the whole Onslaught catalog after that to make the rest of the show. So
Okay.
we do 45 minutes of Power from Hell, then another 35 minutes of classic Onslaught material from all periods. So it's gonna be kind of cool for the fans. Definitely looking forward to it myself. So.
How close do you feel you're to knowing all those tracks from the album?
I finally got Power from Hell sorted now.
Okay.
It took some time to go back. So how did I play that? It's like, wow. And then all of a sudden it just click, and then you got it. I'm fine. I mean, I can, even though I've been away for some time now, all tracks like Metal Forces and Bow Down to the Clowns and 666 fucking six. I mean, I don't even have to think about those. I still play those. So
Yeah.
it's just getting my muscle memory back to be able to physically do that.
Gotcha.
Like I said, it's coming along. It's coming along.
Well, man, I'm absolutely loving Origins and Aggression front to back. This is full of intensity, full of greatness, and absolutely appreciate you taking the time with me.
Yeah, thanks, Trent. It's cool, man. So you've heard the full album, yeah?
Yeah, yeah, I listened to it yesterday a couple times.
Oh, excellent. How
Yeah, I
did how
really
did
love the Angels of Death, re-recording. I listened to it
yeah?
back to back with the original just to see if I could pick anything out. And I mean, I'm not a musician myself.
Are you into punk music in any way?
Yeah, but it was more kind of the on a surface level, I guess. I've always been into like hard rock and metal, and I was into
Yeah,
bands like when I say a surface level, the more mainstream stuff like Social Distortion or Black
yeah, yeah,
Flag or the Sex Pistols or
yeah,
I never got too deep into it, but as I got older, like some hardcore as well, but kind of the same thing. I'm more of
yeah,
a metal rock guy. But
yeah, yeah. I'm just wondering how the tracks are going to come across. That's all. Because
oh yeah,
obviously, it could be kind of cool because we're going to hopefully hit two audiences at the same time, the punk
yeah.
audience and the metal audience. But obviously, I want the punk tracks to cross over to the metal fans.
Well,
That's
yeah, I
why.
thought that, in Holidays in the Sun, like that it, because as I was getting closer to those songs on the track list, I was thinking, I wonder how he's going to sound on Free Will Burning. I
Yeah,
wonder how Dave's going to sound, or I wonder like how these punk songs are going to play in. And I like how you guys went in that direction instead of just sticking it, straight
yeah,
up thrash. And then with Free Will Burning, he expanded his voice into that direction. I was like, I loved both ends of it.
yeah, yeah. Cool, excellent. That's good to know. I'm super stoked with the album. I love listening to the covers in particular at the moment because it's still kind of fresh to me.
I didn't know that. I can't remember if it said in the press release, but is it going to be released as a vinyl at all?
Yeah, yeah, double
Okay.
vinyl they're doing. Yeah, and
Okay.
digipack and CDs. So they're doing the whole works, which
Okay.
is amazing. So that's how we wanted it on vinyl. That was the main kind of criteria we asked. Can we get this out on vinyl? Because being an old school type of record, and we felt it had to come out on vinyl, especially with the kind of resurgence with vinyl. What's going on right now is kind of important.
Right on, man. Well, I appreciate you taking the time with me today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you. Nice to talk to you.
There you go, Nige Rockett of Onslaught. A huge thank you to Curtis Dewar of C Squared Music for his help putting that one together. And of course, a massive thank you to Nige Rockett for taking some time out there to hit me up on Zoom to talk about Origins of Aggression, the fantastic new double album from Onslaught. Like you just heard us talking there at the end, I really love this thing. I think that hopefully this will kind of be one of those things that help push this band into more people's, kind of peripheral or whatever the right word would be, just kind of their world of their earshot and eyeshot when it comes to discovering heavy metal. Because most people that have been metal fans for a long time love to check out their favorite band's influences or check out new stuff, whether it came a long time ago or now. And Onslaught fits that category on both ends. They've got the classic era, they've got the new era, and now they've got new music celebrating that classic era with the current lineup. Such great stuff to check out. So I really hope on May 23rd you check out Origins of Aggression from Onslaught and dig back through those early albums if you had not heard them. And of course, dig through these more recent albums as well. You've got tons of stuff there to check out in the world of Onslaught. And I've got lots of touring come up as he talked about in the interview. So if you get a chance to see Onslaught, get out there and do it. All right, if this is your first time listening, I greatly appreciate that. There's been a lot of people on this podcast throughout the years, as you could guess by looking at the episode number. This was episode 419. So there's been 418 episodes previous to this, dating back to 2015. When it comes to thrash, I should have wrote down a list so I could rattle through them all, but off the top of my head, David Elfson of Megadeth has been on here twice. Chris Broderick and James Lomenzo, both formerly of Megadeth, have been on in the past. Ted Aguilar of Death Angel. 3 different members of Battlecross, multiple times throughout the years. It's been quite a while, but many members of Battlecross have been on this podcast throughout the years. Toxic Holocaust, Creator, modern heavy bands like the Black Dahlia Murder, Devil Driver, Hatebreed, Corrosion of Conformity, going into that 90s era of heavy metal like COC, Typo Negative, Prong, Page Hamilton of Helmet, more than once, or members of White Zombie as well, getting into the 80s stuff that wasn't thrash, the more hard rock or the lighter side to many people's ears, but bands like Kiss, Tesla, Motley Crue, Whitesnake, LA Guns, Slaughter, Warrant. The list on that side is very long as well. Got more modern rock bands like Shinedown, Breaking Benjamin, Three Doors Down, Hellstorm, Seven Dust, Saliva. Living Color is a band that hits all eras. There's so many great artists you can check out. TheThunderUnderground.com. You can listen to everything right there. Wherever you're listening right now, hit like, subscribe, follow, so you get alerted when new episodes drop. I try to put out one a week. Sometimes it's every other week. And speaking of that, the next episode will be, quote unquote, a very special episode. I don't get to say that too often because there's really no reason to say that. But I'm actually putting out the episode on Sunday, April 20th, because that is 420. Obviously, I don't need to tell you that. But this year follows on Easter. So you got a double holiday. And then on top of that, as you could tell in the episode title, like I said a little while ago, this is episode 419. So that means episode 420 has miraculously fallen where I could release it on 420. Sprout the Anti-Hero, longtime friend of this podcast going back to the very early days. He's been on this podcast multiple times, but the most recent time has been a few years. Lots of history with Sprout outside of this podcast as well that I've talked about throughout the years and that we'll talk about on that episode, but Sprout is very well known for his love of the 420 side of things. So we're going to talk about all that, his music, 420, and everything in between coming up, I guess, in about a week and a half. So be on the lookout for that. Follow on all the socials, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, YouTube, and TikTok. I'm on all those. I'm always posting content every day. There's usually a reel of some sort out at least once a day, sometimes twice a day. So be sure and follow on all the socials so you don't miss any of that. They range from historical to little known facts to comedy to AI generated stuff, everything in between. So check out all that stuff on my socials. Thunder Underground. Always have merch. Finally have new shirts coming in. That'll be posted once they're up. Always have shot glasses, koozies, stickers, guitar picks, and all that kind of stuff as well. So anytime you see me, you know the drill. All right, I'm going to quit rambling and get out of here. Once again, a huge thank you to DEB Concerts, Rocklahoma Bitches, Sunset Tattoo, and of course, Nige Rockett of Onslaught. And until next time.
Thunder Underground, y'all.